This man is a professional killer, so once he gets a contract to kill the Prime Minister of France. To accomplish this mission, the man begins his training. First, he hangs his sniper rifle from a tree with a rope and tries to hit a watermelon hanging 250 meters away, but his shot misses by 2.5 centimeters. The assassin fine-tunes his rifle using a screwdriver and takes another shot, striking the watermelon exactly in the middle of a sketched face. Afterwards, he meticulously inserts a unique round into his rifle, and upon firing, the watermelon bursts into fragments. Subsequently, the assassin arrives in France to execute this perilous assignment. Upon arrival, the killer chooses the roof of a hotel to assassinate the president because it seemed the safest spot. Later, he buys various items from the market, completely changes his appearance, and waits for the day he will assassinate the president. Let's find out if this killer really will be able to assassinate the president of France or not. The story begins in France in the year 1962 during an economic recession, causing widespread unease among the people. Meanwhile, President Charles grants independence to a country named Algeria, which ignites outrage among his citizens, particularly the paramilitary troops who felt deeply betrayed as they had lost many comrades in the war with Algeria. And now the president had set them free. Consequently, some members of the paramilitary forces joined together to create an organization named OAS with the aim to kill the president and seize control of France. In the midst of this, we see a man named Jean-Marie who is most angered by these events. Hence, he and his allies start plotting to assassinate the president. While planning, Jean keeps an eye on the president's house to determine when the president will leave. Finally, the day arrives when the president sets out for the airport with his convoy. On the way, Jean signals his men to open rapid fire at the president with automatic guns. More than 140 shots are fired, but by fortune, no one is hit and the president and his companions in the car remain unharmed. However, this incident greatly irked the French administration. Now every political figure wanted the culprits caught. It takes the police and intelligence 176 months, but eventually Jean-Marie and his associates are apprehended by the police. The next morning, Jean's plea for clemency presented in court is also rejected. Therefore, the police shoot him dead. The scene then shifts to show us Colonel Mark, manager of the OAS, and Finance Officer Montclair. The three were hiding in a remote area of Australia. Everyone becomes very troubled because despite all their planning, they fail. These three couldn't even return to their country if they wanted to, because the moment they step into their homeland, they would be arrested upon identification. Colonel Roland had realized that even if he wanted, he couldn't kill the president, nor could any of his countrymen. The authorities had information on every individual. Hence, Roland wanted to hire a foreigner for the job. After 3 months of searching, he finally finds someone with an impeccable record in the world of hitmen, meaning no failure to date. And now Roland summons this person named Jackal to Vienna. Jackal was his code name, used during missions. Upon arriving in Vienna, he meets with all three heads of the OAS. Jackal was highly skilled in his work. With great precision, he addressed the three first, saying, "I have read your files. I know everything." Jackal demands $500,000 for the assignment, given that the individual who undertakes it will be unable to pursue future employment. They all concur on the compensation for their discretion and depart. Jackal meticulously examines every aspect concerning his foe to prepare for the task. He soon procures 2 fabricated passports and embarks for Paris. At first, Jackal conducts a thorough investigation into President Charles. Once he has collected sufficient data, he seeks out the ideal location for the assassination. Serendipitously, he discovers the perfect venue as the president was scheduled to deliver an address there. With the site secured, Jackal summons a couple of specialists from Belgium for the operation. He initially engages with an armaments dealer, outlining his specifications for a firearm to be constructed within a fortnight. An associate will take care of all the necessary documentation. In this manner, Jackal was busily engaged in his preparations. Soon we see a girl named Danny sent by the OHS people to ensnare Minister St. Clair in a love trap. Her job was to extract all the essential information and relay it to OHS so that they remained updated on every government move. Before we knew it, 2 weeks had passed and Jackal received a custom-made gun. It was in the form of pieces, meaning nobody could tell it was a gun just by looking at one piece. Assembling the gun, Jackal conducts a test fire and is exceedingly pleased with the results as it surpassed his expectations. Meanwhile, broad daylight thefts began occurring in the city of Paris. These acts were carried out by paramilitaries to fulfill the demand for 500,000 USD requested by Jackal, as none of them possessed such funds. Hence, the OHS people planned and executed a daring daytime heist, robbing a bank van filled with money in the midst of a crowded market. But before they could escape, the police arrive on the scene and start firing rapidly from both sides. Somehow, the rest of OSK's people manage to flee, but one of their members is captured by the police. This incident had also reached the French authorities, who were quite upset with the ongoing thefts in the country. The French intelligence team attempts to extract information from the arrested individual through torture. After this torture, the individual also revealed the name of Roll End. This increased their suspicion that Roll and his group were planning something big, potentially dangerous for us. The French intelligence team intensively searches for him and his accomplices. Soon they achieve a breakthrough and discover the hideout of them and their people. However, reaching there was extremely difficult as Roland's guards were always surveilling the building, making it nearly impossible to get past them since neither Roland nor any of his associates ever left that place. After days of investigation, they find out that it truly belongs to Wallace, who would exchange messages for him. With the help of rolls and letters, messages were relayed from one place to another. One day, seizing the opportunity to pass a message, intelligence agents ambushed him from behind, attacked him on the head, and brought him straight to France. In France, he's greatly tortured to extract information about Roland and his associates, but even after a long time, he reveals nothing. So, they intensify the torture. Eventually, Wallace reveals there's a man hired by Roland to assassinate the president, but luckily for the paramilitaries, he doesn't know much. Meanwhile, intelligence has already deduced that an outside hitman was contracted for the assassination. When asked for the hitman's name, Wallace tells them he doesn't have one but is called Jackal by everyone. The entire department starts searching for Jackal. Meanwhile, the interior minister arrives to meet with the president. But keeping in mind the security of President Charles, no one, including the ministers, is allowed to meet him, and efforts are made to ensure that the president stays at his residence as much as possible. However, when the president learns of this, he outright denies it, saying that he is not a coward to sit quietly in the face of threats. Saying this, the president continues his rally. Then, once again, the interior minister calls a meeting, which includes all the ministers and policemen, and the commissioner is also present. At Easter, it is voiced most strongly that we must capture this person named Jackal at any cost because he can be a very big threat. A minister asks the commissioner about the lead on the case, but no one knew Jackal, so it has become quite difficult to capture him. The commissioner gives an idea to the minister, suggesting that there is a man who can do the job and find out Jackal's identity. Therefore, for this task, a retired police officer named Lebel is called, who is an expert in this type of investigation. The minister, while handing over the case, asserts that you must locate Jackal under any circumstances, and for this task, you have the permission to do whatever it takes. There will be no interference in your work. Label gets to work and recruits some of his old colleagues into his team because those were the only ones he trusted. On the other hand, we see Danny, who used to stay with the minister. When the minister finishes his job in the evening and returns home, Danny starts to seduce him and gradually succeeds in extracting all the information from him. As soon as the information becomes known, Danny places a call and conveys all the details to a person named William OHS, ensuring there will be no problems for future operations. Meanwhile, a police officer named Thomas was also on the trail of Jackal. Thomas meets with the minister to start gathering information about Jackal. This allows us to understand the extent of panic caused by Jackal throughout the country. The police create a speculation that Jackal seems to be a British name. Many people suspected that this person could be British, so they called the British police to inquire about a person named J. Cole, but all they got was disappointment. Then, the entire department starts trying to decode the name Jacal, which leads them to discover that Jacal is also a Frenchman. Therefore, the department starts checking the passports of all the people who have arrived in the city in the meantime, and that's when they find a person named Paul. But at this time, Jacal was using the identity of the person who had died at the age of 2 years. That's why the whole department starts looking for a man named Paul. Jacal, who was still engaged in his planning, meets the Belgian man who was supposed to do his paperwork, but now greed had taken over this man's mind. So reluctantly, Jacal has to kill him. Jacal's secret was now revealed, and Roland, who had come to know of this, therefore calls him up and explains and asks him to abort the mission. Nevertheless, Jacal declines, stating that once he commits to a task, he completes it. Jacal resides in an inn where he begins planning with a young woman named Berenice. Owing to registering under the pseudonym Paul, he inadvertently draws police attention. Come dawn, law enforcement besieges the inn, enclosing it completely, and inspects Jacal's quarters, yet discovers zilch. The reason being, Jacal had dedicated the entire night with the lady he was arranging plans with. As daylight broke, he had already departed. The constabulary promptly became aware of his early exit too. Consequently, they promptly proceed to interrogate Berenice, who, however, divulges no information to them. Subsequently, we observe Jacal trying to make an escape in an automobile, only to be thwarted by a mishap and realizing that it wouldn't be long before the authorities arrived. Thus, he revisits the same woman, and they while away the time in conversation. Berenice confides in Jacal that the police had inquired after him subsequent to his leaving. And she was inquiring about it, but I told them nothing, and now here, Berenice was the only person who had seen him. Therefore, Jacal had to kill her out of compulsion. As soon as morning arrives, he changes his appearance to look exactly like the man whose passport he had stolen at the airport. He catches a train and heads for Paris, where he intends to kill the president. Meanwhile, when Berenice's servants come to see her in the hotel, they realize that Berenice is dead. They soon inform Label as well that Berenice has been killed. Label starts pondering and says that a thorough search should be done of the whole place. During the search, Label learns about someone named Dennis, and he understands that Jacal is now using this name. Label immediately warns everyone in Paris to be vigilant. He also orders that every hotel, lounge, farmhouse should be monitored. Arrest anyone suspicious immediately. He spreads the news everywhere that if any booking or entry under the name Dennis comes in, they should be apprehended. But Jacal is very cunning. He immediately befriends a man in the Turkish bathhouse to seek asylum there. Meanwhile, Label is tapping the calls of everyone present in the meeting with the minister, where he learns that a girl named Danny lives in the home of a minister named St. Clair, who is passing all the information to the OAS. Consequently, she warns Jacal beforehand, which is why we are unable to catch Jacal. When St. Clair learns of this, he takes many pills and commits suicide. Label informs his people that the president has fought in World War II, so he will undoubtedly come to deliver a speech on Liberation Day, which is Jacal's best chance to assassinate the president. Therefore, Label speaks to the police, beefing up security everywhere, ensuring no one can get near the president. On the other hand, Jacal also kills the man with whom he was staying, leaving no evidence behind. Finally, Liberation Day arrives. Rebel can't find any trace of Jacal, so he orders that everyone coming here must have their ID checked. No one is to enter without an ID check. That's when we see Jacal disguised as a handicapped veteran approaching a guard with a new identity. He tells the guard that he's a local and then proceeds inside. Meanwhile, Label was keeping an eye on everything but couldn't spot any trouble. Yet, he knew something was amiss, so he starts talking to each guard one by one. One of them informs him that a limping old man just entered the building through an open window. Hearing this, Label is taken aback, realizing that it's Jacal and that he'll soon take a shot at the president. Label rushes with a policeman towards the room where Jacal is ready to aim at the president. Jacal fires, but at that very moment, the president bends down to present an award to a freedom fighter, causing the first shot to miss. Collie slips above their heads. Jacal prepares to reload his gun for the second shot. As much as Label and a policeman arrive there, Jacal shoots and kills the policeman. Taking the chance, Label picks up the policeman's automatic gun and shoots down Jekyll. The London police quickly close the case because Jekyll wasn't an Englishman but a Frenchman. Jekyll is laid to rest eternally in an unmarked grave at an undisclosed location in Paris. And with that, friends, today's narrative comes to an end. So do let us know how you like this story in the comments, and please share your suggestions with us in the comments.